Hey guys, this is your boy Mufasa. As you already know, the show is nothing without you guys. So please don't forget to like the videos, subscribe to the channel, and let's continue growing. So those are the guys that I would be targeting for that backup center position. We already have a plus with Bona being there and showing what he has shown last season with playing time. Um, Now that we're done with that 35th pick and what the backup position needs to be for Joel. So again, you can't go with just two centers this season. You have to have at least three competent center that would give you meaningful minutes when they're on the floor. And I just think it's no longer the case with Andrew Drummond, so you got to get rid of him and try to find a second center to help Adam Bona, who will be in his second year during this upcoming season. Now, back to the top three pick that we have. If the San Antonio Spurs select Dylan Harper, you go with Ace Bailey. I think it's pretty simple as that. I think Ace is a player with such a high motor, such a crazy athleticism that you cannot pass on him. I know there's guys like Trey Johnson, VJ Edgecombe, but first of all, I've been hearing a lot of crazy comments about his height at the combine and how apparently Rutgers listed him at 6'10", and now he's listed at 6'7" or 6'7.5", without shoes at the combine, and is somewhere around 6'9", with shoes. Who cares, guy? Who really cares? Seriously, let's not overthink this thing. I think if the Spurs get Dylan Harper, you go with Ace. You go with Ace because Ace is a guy who can help you, one, in your transition offense and transition defense. He has enough size to be a better rebounder than Embiid at this point. At least if he's playing alongside Embiid and Embiid can box out, he's a guy with his athleticism and his size can jump up and go grab a rebound. He could block some shots. He's done it throughout his career, whether it's in high school or college. He has a pretty high motor, like I was saying. He's a very good catch and shooter. And even the weaknesses that have been pointed out for him, I think those are things that he can work on. He's pretty skinny. He could put on some weight. I remember how Giannis Antetokounmpo was skinny when he got in the league. I'm not making any comparison with Giannis. Please do not assume that I'm comparing him or having like an upside of Giannis for him. If he does have it, great. I'm just saying, with the prototype of the body, he could put on some weight and not necessarily become as bulky as Giannis, but he could put on some weight in the NBA. When it comes to his ball handling, he could get better, and he doesn't have to have a great ball handling skills because he's not a point guard. He's gonna be playing the 3 or the 4, and most of the time he's not gonna be having the ball. He's gonna be given the ball in certain situations, but he's not gonna be running the offense. He's not gonna be coming up with the ball like a Maxey or Quentin Grimes if he stays, or Jared McCain, for instance. So he can get better at dribbling, ball handling, but I don't think it's a priority per se. I think he needs to be better around the rim. These are things those weaknesses. We have a guy in the name of Rico Hines with the Rico runs in LA that a lot of NBA players go to. He's on our coaching staff. I have no doubt that if we get a guy like Ace Bailey, for instance, he would help develop this kid and improve in these weaknesses that he has. But just in terms of raw talent, in terms of upside, and athleticism and star power, you can't miss on this guy. With the third pick, I think you take the risk with the hope that it pans out, and if it doesn't, you just embrace it. But you can't go with the thought that this guy is not going to work out. You can't go and say, regret 3-4 years down the line not picking this guy like we've been regretting with Jason Tatum that we could have drafted, or Jaylen Brown, for instance, in these past years. Yes, we had bust with Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz for several reasons, but that's just part of the draft too. You have to take some risk, and I think if Dylan Harper is selected at the second pick with the Spurs, I think you go with Ace Bailey for the reasons that I mentioned, and you just need some size. The Sixers are always been physically dominated in the playoffs, whether it's by Boston or the Knicks last year. They're just not a good rebounding team, and they get out-rebounded and outmatched physically in these playoffs, and you need to have some youth, some players that will be able to do the dirty work, especially with the diminished Joel Embiid and an aging Paul George. You have to have some athletes around them. So I would go with Ace Bailey at 3 if Dylan Harper is selected by the Spurs, especially also because the backcourt of the Sixers right now is pretty decent, pretty good in my opinion. Right now you have Quentin Grimes, Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, and who else am I seeing here? Let me see. Jared Butler, Lonnie Walker as your guards, whether it's like shooting guards or point guards, and also Kelly Oubre, who could play the 2 at some point. I'm not gonna count on Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry because I'm hoping for them to be out of this team. I hope they retire or just go look for a deal with a different team. I don't want them to come back, so I'm not counting them. But that's a pretty interesting backcourt that we have, and those guards are already pretty good for you to necessarily draft a guard again, in my opinion. Now, if the Spurs manage to get Bailey at 2 instead of Dylan Harper, then you draft Dylan Harper at 3. I think Dylan Harper is a great prospect. I can see him with the Cade Cunningham comp in the NBA right now. Very good size, 6'6", 6'7" point guard who is very shifty, very crafty, and does not get sped up. He plays at his own pace, has a very nice vision, and bigger guards are just successful in the NBA because most of the time they are a matchup problem for the opposing team. So if Ace is there, is picked up at the Spurs, you go with Dylan Harper, and then you figure out your front court with the Sixers by making sure that you trade for a power forward. I think it's crucial for you to bring Gershon Yabusele back. You have to sign him back. You have to sign Quentin Grimes back. I think if you do get Dylan Harper, you then have a backcourt of Quentin Grimes, Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, and Dylan Harper. That's a good 4 core that you have throughout the season that you can alternate, and most of these, they're all pretty much combo guards. They could both shoot. They could all shoot the basketball and run an offense. So that would be a pretty good nucleus in terms of guard to be able to get better and go through the regular season and even perform in the playoffs. But the only issue with drafting a guard in the likes of Dylan Harper, for instance, is you still will have to get a bigger player for the front court because you will be limited. Provided that Yabusele comes back, you will only have Paul George, Yabusele, Justin Edwards, who has been a very good surprise this year, and that's about it. Of course, you could play Kelly Oubre at the small forward, but I think if you aspire to a championship, you need to have another power forward that you have to bring, especially again somebody who can shoot, rebound the basket, and help Joel Embiid when he's on the court in terms of rebounding, because at this point I think you just need to ask Joel to at least box out if he can't get the rebound, and also to be able to score when Joel is out, because like we were saying, the two backup centers that we will have are not necessarily guys that will count on offensively. So, guys like Santi Aldama, who's about to be a free agent, I think, with the Grizzlies. Bobby Portis, I think, is the guy that you could be looking at. Naz Reid from the Timberwolves. Of course, all of these guys have higher chances of, getting re-signed by the teams, but I'm just giving the prototype of the kind of front court guys that you need to get if you do draft a player like Dylan Harper, for instance, because yes, you would have solidified your backcourt, but your front court would still be a little thin for you to be able to compete at a high level in the playoffs. So you will have to make some trades or sign some a prototype, a player like the ones that I just mentioned, in order to be more competitive. So